Let's kick it off by going over the key components of a home purchase. This breaks out into three different parts. First, your down payment. This is what establishes your equity out of the gate. This is your contribution in the transaction. Most home buyers nowadays will do an 8 to 10% down payment as an average. However, there are certain loan programs that allow you to do as little as 0 to 3% down. Next, we have our mortgage. This is the amount that you borrow from the bank, and it's very dependent on your particular finances. Last but not least, we have our closing costs. The closing costs are the costs associated with purchasing real estate. They are made up of several third-party fees. The most expensive closing costs are typically going to be your homeowner's insurance policy, your lender fees, and your title fees. These vary from state to state, but the typical rule of thumb that we always tell our students and our clients is plan for 2 to 3% of your total purchase price to be the equivalent of your total closing costs. So for example, if you're buying a $500,000 home, you want to be prepared for $10,000 to $15,000 worth of closing costs depending on what state you're in. States like Florida and Texas and California, it's very inexpensive to purchase real estate. So those closing costs are going to be lower. It's important to understand that closing costs are also negotiated between buyer and seller. So the amount that you actually end up paying is going to come down to how your negotiations go with the seller. So again, always make sure that we're prepared for the higher amount, 2 to 3% of the total purchase price. Let's cover an example together. So that way you can get comfortable with the numbers. In this example, I'm purchasing a $500,000 home using a 5% down payment. So I need $25,000 for my down payment, and I'm borrowing $475,000 from the bank. I need to be conscious of my closing costs, which in this example, I'm estimating to be $7,500. That brings my total cash outlay to $32,500. Now, if for whatever reason the bank came back to me and said I can borrow a maximum of $465,000 or $10,000 less than before, I would need to close this gap with two ways. The first one is I would simply have to come up with an additional $10,000 to purchase the same home, increasing my cash outlay from $32,500 to $42,500. Next, my other alternative would be to lower the purchase price or shop for a new home at a lower purchase price closer to $485,000 or $490,000 total. We have a lot of students that would come to us and say, I have a $100,000 down payment. And after we go over their total budget, they don't have a $100,000 down payment. They have a $100,000 total for the transaction. So this is something we want you to be conscious of. Make sure that your budget includes budgeting for closing costs. So now we understand the key components of a home purchase. The biggest takeaway here is that these components are easy to manipulate. And really it comes down to your goals and objectives. The better your finances are, the more options that you have available to you. In the next class, we're going to be diving into down payment and why choosing the right down payment is so critical.